The flag of the Kurdish Autonomous Region was taken down in Kirkuk last week as Iraqi forces gained control of the city. Ahmed al-Rabi'i agents France Press, Getty Images Baghdad. Military operations in Iraq this past week were one-sided, with Iraqi government forces using superior numbers and firepower to reclaim disputed areas that had been controlled by separatist Iraqi Kurds since 2014, but in the public relations war, the two American allies are vying on a more level battlefield to win international support and sympathy just days after Iraq drove Kurdish fighters from almost all of the contested areas. The Kurds and Baghdad traded accusations after a battle on Friday in which Iraqi government forces reclaimed the last Kurdish-held area in oil-rich Kirkuk province. The two sides blamed each another for firing the first shots, and for using weapons supplied by the American-led coalition that were intended for use against Islamic State militants. Kurdish fighters known as Peshmerga ultimately withdrew from the town of Altan-Kupri and retreated into the Kurdish Autonomous Region, Iraq's military said. And the two sides, which backed by American airstrikes and artillery, have driven Islamic State militants from most of Iraq, have traded broader charges as well. Masoud Barzani, president of the Kurdish regional government, accused Baghdad late Friday of imposing a blockade and collective punishment on Kurds. The military command in Baghdad responded on Saturday by saying that the Kurdish leadership had engaged in exaggerations and lies. The United States has called on both sides to coordinate its troop movements in order to prevent further clashes. We urge the central government to calm the situation by limiting federal forces' movements in disputed areas to only those coordinated with the Kurdistan regional government, Heather Nauert, a State Department spokeswoman, said in a statement. Last Monday, Baghdad launched a military operation in areas that had been seized by Kurdish forces in 2014 after Iraqi troops fled an Islamic State assault. The move was seen as retaliation for the Kurds' vote last month, over the objections of Baghdad and the United States, to seek independence from Iraq. Kurdish forces withdrew from the town of Altan-Kupri on Friday. Khalid Mohammed Associated Press. Kurdish forces withdrew without a fight from the city of Kirkuk and other areas after members of a Kurdish faction opposed to Mr. Barzani negotiated an agreement with government officials. Analysts said that a prominent Iranian military commander, Maj. Gen. Qasim Soleimani, helped broker the deal. Iraqi Shiite militias, armed by Iran and advised by General Soleimani, played an important role in the government operation. The United States said it had not taken sides in the conflict, but it did not object to or interfere with the Iraqi government operation. American troops were in the area, but had no role in the conflict, the coalition said. Analysts said Washington was expressing its displeasure that Mr. Barzani had spurned American proposals to cancel the independence vote and enter negotiations with Baghdad. American officials told Mr. Barzani after the vote that he had forfeited the goodwill of the United States, according to a senior official who spoke on condition of anonymity because he was not authorized to discuss the matter publicly. Kurdish leaders have criticized the United States, saying Washington abandoned the Kurds after some 1,700 Peshmerga died fighting the Islamic State. Mr. Barzani's communications director, Vahel Ali, has accused the United States of giving Iraq to Iran as a present. The deafening silence from the international community has emboldened Iraq and neighboring countries to attack Kurdistan, the Kurdish regional government said in a statement. The week's events, it said, confirmed Kurds' legitimate fears about our future in this country. Mr. Barzani urged Kurds in the United States and Europe to mount peaceful demonstrations in support of Iraqi Kurdistan. On Saturday, Iraq's foreign ministry said demonstrators in Erbil had attacked and damaged the Iranian consulate there. The State Department called on both sides to engage in dialogue on the disputed areas. The reassertion of federal authority over disputed areas in no way changes their status. They remain disputed until their status is resolved in accordance with the Iraqi constitution, it said. The Iraqi military command said Saturday that Peshmerga fighters in Altan-Kupri had fired a German-supplied missile that struck an American-supplied Abrams tank, killing 2 Iraqi soldiers. The command denied Kurdish claims that the Peshmerga had destroyed 10 Humvees and 2 Abrams tanks. A coalition spokesman said he could not confirm the battlefield reports. People who fled Hawiyah in 2014 returned there last week after the town was retaken by Iraqi forces. Ahmed al-Rabi'i agents France Press, Getty Images. Local hospitals said that 5 government militia fighters were also killed in the battle. 3 civilians, including a child, were killed as well, they said. 6 Peshmerga fighters were killed, said Kamal Kakakali, a senior Peshmerga commander. Elsewhere, a leader of the Kurdish faction in Kirkuk, Aris Sheikh Jangi, said Peshmerga intelligence officers were working alongside the federal and local police in the disputed city, home to Kurds, Arabs and Turkmens. In a statement on Saturday, Mr. Jangi said all Shiite militias had left the city 2 days ago. Shiite militias dominate the so-called Popular Mobilization Forces incorporated into the Iraqi army. They have been accused of instigating attacks against Kurdish civilians in the disputed areas. The United Nations said Thursday it had received reports that 150 Kurdish homes in the city of Tuzkermisu had been burned by armed groups. After Peshmerga fighters withdrew last Monday, the city came under the control of Shiite Turkmen fighters who are part of the Popular Mobilization Forces. Lise Grande, humanitarian coordinator for the United Nations mission in Iraq, said more than 30,000 civilians had fled Tuzkermisu. In all, the United Nations said 100,000 civilians have fled from the contested areas, including tens of thousands who left the city of Kirkuk after Monday's operation, some of whom have returned. Most of those who fled were believed to be Kurdish supporters of Mr. Barzani. In Baghdad and in Erbil, the capital of the Kurdish region, comments by local residents reflected the enmity between the two sides. "Well done, Abadi," said Firas Abbas, 42, a businessman in Baghdad, referring to Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi. Law and order has to be imposed in all provinces. In Erbil, Ahmed Sharif, 53, a retiree, blamed the United States for an international conspiracy against the Kurds, who he said had been America's best friend in the region. "The only beneficiary in this conspiracy is Iran," he said. Margaret Coker contributed, reporting from London. Faleh Hassan and Omar Al-Jawashi from Baghdad and Mohammad Nashat from Erbil, Iraq.